Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nigel Canning. It's not quite 2 o'clock and I can see various people joining. Hello, Gordon. Hello, Paul. Apologies for others that I don't know. So if you could just give me a couple more minutes for the remaining people to join. The attendee count is going up, so let's hang on in there for a few minutes, if you don't mind. On this gloriously sunny day. Oh, whoops, nope, that's somewhere else. That's not here because it's raining. Chucking it down here. Here we go, count's going up. Won't be long. Right, so I'll get started. So welcome everybody. My name is Nigel Canning. I'm a UK sales engineer for the South with Zixel. My colleague, obviously Daniel, you probably know as well. He covers the North, but it's for me today to go over our new USG Flex range and what it's all about. So what I wanted to do to start with is just a few sort of basic facts about the USG model. Obviously that's been around for a while, everybody knows that pretty well, and it'll hopefully sort of help to explain where the USG Flex is coming from and where we're going with the USG Flex. So although the title says higher precision detection, it's a little bit more than that. It is a valid phrase, but yes, interesting phrase I was given, but here we go. So a few facts about the current USG product family. So it's been around now for a few years, but last year, for instance, we sold, as it says here, 66,000 Zywalls, which is sort of the product family name covering all USG functions, 152,000 active subscribers. The number of networks actually protected by Zywall devices is huge. It's way more than that 250,000 figure because there's a lot of private devices that are used. You can see how substantial the licensing business was in 2019 alone, and it's a substantial part of Zixel's hardware business within the channel. So it is actually quite a substantial market, which we want to further invest in. That's what we're doing with USG Flex. And obviously I want to explain where some of the features are coming from and what the overall aim is. So the USG model itself has had numerous recommendations in worldwide media, and it's been a really good product and solution for the small to medium-sized businesses. That will continue to be the case, but what we have done is, if people are aware of our ATP product family from last year, there's a lot of very interesting and sort of cloud-based higher-end security functionality went into that model and platform. An element of those solutions is now being moved into the USG Flex family to give it increased security scanning functionality and so on and so forth, which I'll go over in a minute. But basically, the gist of this slide is just to show you how popular the USG family has been and is with various magazines and technical authorities around the world in that particular SMB space. These are just a few examples of some of the reviews that have come out that I was provided by our marketing people. You get given the slides after the presentation, but I just sort of put it in there to just to give you a view as to what people feel about the USG device. But I mean, obviously, those of you who have used it, use it regularly. You know, it's a nice small scale SMB product, not just managing security, but it can do things like manage your on-premise access points if required, you know, VPN connectivity, so on and so forth. So why have we introduced the USG Flex? So although some of the slides really focus on the increased, what they call this higher precision detection, I'll go over why they mean that. There's a number of things that we're doing. In general, if you see Flex in a product name and you're aware of what our Nebula cloud management product is, it hints at what this is about. So if you want on-premise, locally managed security device solution, you can use the USG Flex still in that mode. Later on, towards the end of this year, it will also be Nebula manageable, hence the Flex. So this concept of Nebula Flex product, so a switch that can be managed on-premise or in the cloud, the same thing is now starting to happen with the USG Flex family. So there's a bit of a hint there in the name. So why are we talking about higher precision detection? So for a relatively physically small scale device, what we have now introduced is technology and licensing and product features that allow us to scale and use the cloud-based security platforms that we've got to increase the detection rates, to be more precise, as it says. So although it says higher precision detection, what's it actually talking about? So we've got a technology called Cloud Query, which is essentially using in real time a cloud-based security engine, which has got a sort of a signature and a database and a heuristic engine that is way bigger than any on-premise device can provide. So that Cloud Query engine and all its resources are continuously learning and gleaning threat information from third-party providers, from USG Flex devices themselves, from ATP devices, and even current USG devices. So by using hash detection and heuristic systems, basically the verification speed can be shortened to seconds, even though it's also using the Cloud Query engine. So basically, the way that we do that is by basically leveraging relationships with sort of best in breed security companies. So we've got a new relationship with McAfee. We've already had relationships with Bitdefender and MaxMind and companies called Cosmos and Lastline. You probably don't necessarily know of some of those companies. Obviously, Bitdefender and McAfee you probably have heard about, but these companies also will work with companies like Zixel, and their engines, their security engines, can be leveraged via our platforms to implement essentially some of the more in-depth security features of the USG Flex. So basically, the Flex is integrating these engines from these leading companies and basically providing sort of global at-scale, security solutions on this, smaller scale SMB appliance. So basically, we obviously need to highlight that there is a substantial investment with the relationship with McAfee. Obviously, you can see some of the awards that McAfee have got recently. Obviously, Zixel being a Taiwanese company, there's a lot of awards from security over in the Far East, and we're just pointing out that this is a two-way relationship between McAfee and Zixel. So basically, McAfee's leading technology basically has a cloud database that keeps growing and learning in real time. So they've got probes all around the world at various internet peering arrangements. So they're scanning all the time, and you can see that basically we're leveraging their security database along with our security database to really ramp up as high as we possibly can things like the anti-malware detection rate. So you can see here a couple of graphs. It's a bit difficult because it's very close. But Zixel, Sophos, and Fortinet, we are up there with the best, if not higher than the best. In fact, one of the things that the fact that the security database is online within the cloud, obviously the booting up performance is improved as well, because rather than having to learn over a period of time, that database and that engine is running 24/7 globally. So when the device powers up, you're online from a security point of view instantly. One of the other things that the McAfee engine provides is obviously it's got a much sort of finer grained and enhanced web filtering engine. It's got a much broader range of categories that you can select to filter on. So we're going from, say, the current system, which provides around about 64 categories to 111 categories. One of the other areas of interest has basically been in the UK, in the educational space. If you wanted to use a security device within education, there is a testing framework which you will find will often fail because of this counter-terrorism list. Basically, you have to pass that list, you have to pass that test now, and you have to include the CTIRU list because of things brainwashing and terrorism and so on and so forth. These lists are now integrated into the USG Flex. So it's actually quite a substantial point, which I feel we should make, because it actually enables you to now sort of enter the educational space from a filtering point of view, which has perhaps been difficult before, because these are not simple things to do. But now we've entered into this relationship, and that should enable educational scanning and so on and so forth to take place. One of the things that the USG already does, and that the USG Flex will continue to do and add on to, is obviously we take a multi-layered approach to security. We're not just doing, a simple, straightforward firewall ruling type thing. Obviously, there are URL threat filters, so you can block particular URLs. Obviously, it goes without saying that anti-malware, viruses, and so on and so forth, once detected, are blocked. Now, intrusion prevention systems are part of any sort of UTM solution, have been around a long while, but basically, once an invalid type protocol attack is detected, they are blocked. The other side of the coin in this kind of multi-layered approach is to actually restrict so-called risky behaviors. So you can do things like the geographical enforcement is, you can't go to certain areas, say, and I apologize to Russians, you can't go to Russia, say, or you can't go to websites in China, or you can't go to websites wherever else you'd like to block on a geographical basis. Obviously, you can do web filtering with whitelists and blacklists. Application control is clearly very important. I'll go over that in a minute, but obviously you can detect what type of applications the firewall is allowing through, and you can either do things like block it or restrict the throughput of it, or create alerts or whatever it is you want to use. But I think, to me, the most important thing to highlight is that we are taking a multi-layered approach, so that if one aspect perhaps got through, another element of the engines would pick it up. It's no good in security just having one approach. You really do have to have a multi-layered approach to pick up as many threats as possible. One of the things with the new USG Flex, it isn't just that these security engines have given this increased performance. The hardware platform itself is completely refreshed. So you've got new CPUs, additional memory, excuse me, which is added to this increase in performance. So you can see here that the performance for firewall, from a firewall point of view, for stateful packet inspection, is up by 125% in some cases. The UTM performance, based on the new cloud query engine and the hardware, has gone through the roof. You can look at almost a 5-fold increase in that without any trouble whatsoever using the Cloud Express mode. There's a useful table here which I managed to grab from one of the other sales kits, and as I said, so these slides will come out to people, and the idea is that we will hope that this will help you when you come to scale or choose your replacement model. So we're trying to get over, if you're currently using a USG 40 or a USG 60, which model does that map to in the USG Flex range? So, for instance, here you can see we've got a graph with the firewall throughput, the UTM throughput, and the current model, USG 40, say. What we're essentially saying here, that's going to map to a USG Flex 100. But you can see the difference in a USG 40, for instance, firewalling can do 400 meg. A USG Flex firewalling can do 1 gig. So hopefully this will help you with FTTP rollouts or higher speed sort of GFast connections and such like, that basically these devices will keep up with the hopefully improved internet throughput and connection speeds that you will be able to get. And you can see that there's already 100, the 200, and the 500 model, and how they fit in with the USG 40, 60, and 110. So the gist of it is much higher firewall performance, substantially higher UTM performance. Off you go. Obviously, these devices, UTM devices, used for VPN and remote access connectivity. It's going to offer that as a USG does at the moment. There are what's called zero configuration modes. There's like a simplified, easy setup wizard thing to help perhaps not so technically capable people to set up VPNs. Carries on supporting IPsec, SSL, and level 2 tunneling protocol over IPsec as before. We've increased the number of SSL tunnels supported. Obviously, from working from home at the moment, it's a key thing. Obviously, if you've been involved with USGs over the last couple of months and SSL VPNs, you'll know that we released a free firmware upgrade to increase the number of tunnels supported. And this goes forward in the USG Flex straight away. So you can see that the number of SSL tunnels supported here is in the table. So you're talking about 30, 60, or 150 out of the box. All based on, essentially new CPU chipsets that have encryption support in the chips, in the instruction sets, all the kind of things that you would get by refreshing the hardware. What we have also done now is we've taken the opportunity to make the licensing subscriptions a bit more flexible. I'm going to go over that in a bit more detail in a minute. There's some other slides coming up. But basically, obviously, the UTM bundle, as it used to be called, is still there. But we've also got the concept of hospitality bundled license, which is to do with managing access points and things like that, and the little hotspot printer thing and that sort of thing to help get people online with Wi-Fi. You can choose a single license still if that's appropriate. We're not going away from that, but we're just trying to bring a bit more flexibility to support you. So here is a sort of a simple overview of the bundle. So you can see that the UTM, and what I should say is you can still buy the device as a device only and then buy the individual elements if you wish, or obviously there's a cost advantage to buy a device with a bundled license up front, and then there are renewal licenses. So obviously you've got the web filtering, intrusion detection and prevention, application control, anti-malware, email security from a spam point of view. And one of the other important things which will go on in a minute is that you get obviously a secure reporter license with it as well, which is key to actually reporting on what your firewall and security device is doing. The renewal license is very similar, except that it renews to Secure Reporter Premium. And you can see that there's this phrase and there's a column, a la carte license, which is obviously if you just want a particular feature like web filtering and email security, you would get that a la carte license. If you just wanted to carry on reporting, you could buy a Secure Reporter license or an antivirus license, basically anti-malware. So you can kind of see where we're coming from. There's a couple of slight restrictions there in the keys there where it says at the bottom, for instance, the managed AP service is that the device itself can manage on-premise access points. That feature is only applicable to the USG Flex 200 and 500, as it says in the keys at the bottom there. So that's the only slight difference. So you get a 30-day trial, and then you can obviously buy the license as required. So as I just mentioned earlier on, one of the really key things that I think it is really worthwhile pointing out is you may have gone to a customer, you've sold them a security solution, but how do you actually report on what the device is doing and what the value that the customer gets from the device? So with Secure Reporter, which is a cloud-based service, you set the USG up to report via Secure Reporter. And with the bundled license, you get a license for an instance of Secure Reporter. So the USG Flex device itself provides data about what it's doing to the Secure Reporter platform, and then you can use Secure Reporter to report on that, and you can see what applications people are viewing, what what viruses perhaps have been caught and detected, data throughput, everything you can imagine. But you can basically report to your customer using this, so you can get reports emailed out, you can customize them, so on and so forth. So if you think about it, it isn't just replace your security device, whack out a USG Flex. I think one of the important things is that you can report to your customers and show the value of what you've sold them, what service perhaps you're offering them in terms of a security service using Secure Reporter. So it's a very useful feature. Another thing, obviously, as we're saying here, we call it comprehensive connectivity, and this is trying to get across the fact that we can also deal with hospitality. So obviously access point management and what they term concurrent device upgrade, which is basically firmware upgrading access points easily on premise. So you can see here that there's a small table below to show what the limits of each device's access point management is. So out of the box, each device supports up to 8 access points. With access point license upgrades, you can upgrade to 24, 40, and 72 devices as required. So this is basically if you need to have an access point on-premise controller, you would now use something like a USG Flex rather than the NXC wireless controllers, which are now end of life. So that whole functionality hasn't gone away. It's just been taken care of and integrated into a USG Flex. So we're offering increased security and access point management all in the one device. I think one of the important things to just go over now is these licensed services and features and what they actually offer and where we're coming from. So one of the most important things and improvements in the USG to the USG Flex is this what's called this cloud query engine. And the idea of this is that files that are scanned at the gateway, files can be either scanned at the gateway itself by the USG Flex or by the security cloud. And obviously the scanning for viruses and other inherent threats. So basically what you've got here, you've got the USG Flex, which is obviously on premise. Now stream mode is where the data is going through the device itself. The express mode is where the hashes and the heuristics are being fed up to the Zyxel security cloud. So depending on which mode you want to use, you get higher detection rates and faster scanning times. So basically there are various technologies in the security, Zyxel security cloud, which I've mentioned earlier on, which have been leveraged from top-end security devices like McAfee and some of the other companies that we mentioned. So it's not just scanned by one engine, it's scanned by multiple engines. So this helps to increase the detection rate without compromising performance. If you really do need a much faster stream-based scanning engine in real time, you can basically use these modes by using inline hashes. So basically there's no file size limitation because you're basically doing it inline. And obviously these databases in the cloud are optimized purely for security signatures to make it fast and inherently secure. The other thing we want to point out is obviously a lot of internet security these days is down to web filtering. So you're blocking out access to known risky sites, the obvious ones, obvious candidates. So obviously with this, basically the web filtering will prevent malicious downloads by basically blocking access to sites that the policy enforcement has said you can't go to. So it's integrated into the firewall. So if the policy is met, the access will be blocked. And obviously these kind of defense mechanisms are updated all the time using the cloud databases. So as you can see here, an HTTP or HTTPS request will come in, it gets parsed, it goes down to the local URL filtering engine. If it's already in that category, then it just gets blocked instantly. Or if it isn't in that category, it can be sent over to the cloud connected database, which is much bigger. So the results of that come back, positive or negative, and it gets blocked. But obviously all of this goes on in real time. So you basically, once again, you have access to a much broader category database that's managed in real time in the cloud, yet it's blocked at the local level. Another useful thing which people are obviously used to already is application control. So you can work at an application level rather than have to work out, IP addresses and DNS addresses for, say, Skype or YouTube or whatever. So you can identify things at an application level. So obviously you can identify and control, as it says here, thousands of applications and how they subsequently behave. So you then categorize them using the USG Flex, and then you go and, as the drawing shows, you control them. So you can either prioritize a particular application. So things like, Office 365 email, or database or real-time collaboration like WebEx and so on and so forth would be prioritized. If you've got things that you want to throttle because of that prioritization, Facebook and Twitter and maybe Dropbox large files would be throttled. If you want to categorize things as a complete waste of time, so you can block YouTube, Netflix, and as it says there, World of Warcraft. I don't know what the donkey is. I suppose that's file sharing donkey, isn't it? But anyway, you can then flexibly control the bandwidth, prioritize things to enable the working environment to function properly. So it's all very well having these higher speed fiber circuits, but if everyone's just enjoying themselves even more on YouTube and Netflix, you're not achieving any business value, are you? So that's where application control comes into its own. Obviously, intrusion detection and prevention was one of the Important areas when UTM devices came out. This is all really about looking at packets deeply, if there is such a word, and working out what the actual connection is trying to achieve. So basically, the packet inspection rate has gone up because of faster CPUs. You can examine incoming and outgoing traffic, including SSL traffic. So that will help you deal with denial of service attacks, buffer overflows, any kind of known dodgy protocol transactions, like to FTP and things like that. So as it says, it's scanning a packets deeply and looking at what the state machines are trying to do. And if you're trying to create an invalid connection, so if you're violating, say, an HTTP protocol, the state machine will block that, and it won't allow access to, say, a web server behind the firewall itself. Obviously, one of the main advantages of this sort of thing is if you've got a database server or a web server behind your firewall, you can protect against things like SQL injection attacks and cross-site scripting, because the IDS will detect the invalid protocols and block them, basically. This is quite a hairy sort of protocol-based security layer. The email security is there as well still. So if you've got an email server internally and you want us to deal with spam detection and blocking and so on and so forth, there's the usual engine there. Basically, the email server will go out via the USGs, spam engines using cloud database and whitelists and blacklists and so on and so forth. So it's got a huge cloud engine that basically gathers all of the kind of spam people and so on and so forth, so you can block that. I guess in some respects, the requirement for this is becoming less and less because of things like Office 365 and Google email and so on and so forth. But there's still a requirement if you perhaps do your own support and you've got various servers within your premise that you need to email alerts out and so on and so forth. Or if you do indeed want to still run your own Exchange server or whatever, this will help with and prevent spam and security attacks. I mentioned it earlier on about the hospitality license, but this is the whole concept of basically bundling the access point management and the hotspot management with what's called hospitality license. So this basically allows you to have guest access management onto Wi-Fi, basically by being able to group things together and do firmware upgrades. There's features in there to make it much quicker and easier to deal with a large number of access points. So basically you can easily scale your network without having to have individual access points being set up. You can manage it at a group level. So as it says here, basically makes it much more easier to provision and manage Wi-Fi networks on premise. Obviously, the other way of doing this is via Nebula, but we're giving the opportunity to do it via on-premise USG Flex and this HUD license, or you can do it via Nebula or Nebula Flex. Obviously, with any new device and any new solution, we want to make it fairly simple to migrate. So a couple of things in that area there's license migration, which I'm just about to mention, and there are some tools to help with configuration migrations. The license migration will be very beneficial to people. What we're doing is basically we're going to take the longest license length still left over, if that makes any sense, and you then add it. So in this instance, if you've got 180 days of content filter license left, it will be added to your whoops, my PowerPoint's playing it. It will be added to your UTM bundle license. So you've got basically 180 days added to the UTM bundle, and then what you end up with is 396 days, which is, I don't think this slide is actually getting it across very well. But the gist of it is if you've got 1 year of bundle license that comes with the USG Flex, whatever's left on your previous model gets added to it, plus, of course, the 30-day trial. So if you think about it, if you've got one small part of a license that's got a large period left, you get the benefit of all of the other elements being added to it. So trying to make it advantageous to migrate. We're also simplifying the license activation process. And now just two steps to it. You just enter the license key and the customer ID straight away, the product ID, and you can activate the device on the Zyzor My Partner portal. Not My Partner, sorry, the My Zyzor I obviously would carry on recommending that you use MyXyzal portal to keep a track of serial numbers and licenses and so on and so forth, so that they can be basically tracked, and you can work out when licenses expire and when they should be renewed, so on and so forth. This is really to do with the configuration process. And although it says hardware migration, really, I guess it probably should have said the configuration migration. So how do you go from a USG to a USG Flex migration? So there's going to be a tool that's released. I think it's already out there. So you can see here that you will basically be able to take a USG model of a particular type, and you'll be able to convert it to what is felt to be the equivalent device. So USG 40 would go to a USG Flex 100, 60 to a USG Flex 200, so on and so forth. And as it says here, it will convert the web GUI, the ports and the interface, the hotspots, and so on and so forth. There's a new feature coming out soon, which will convert the content filtering, the anti-malware, and the anti-spam. And then in September, another update will basically convert some of the advanced tools to do with a unified security policy. So all of this is underway. Very good. That I'm pleased to see that from day one there will be reconfiguration assistance, because I know that some people have asked about that in the past. On the ATP, for instance, there was an ATP converter, but it came a little bit after the product was released, which didn't really help. This time they've taken on board some feedback, and there'll be this configuration tool to help in migrations. So now I just want to go over the first 3 devices. Once again, obviously you're going to get this slide sets afterwards. So if you do need any product comparison information, you can use this, or I've got some spreadsheets and things like that. If anyone wants to contact me, give you my email address at the end, just feel free to get in touch, please. So the USG Flex comparison chart, you can see how it compares against Fortinet, SonicWall, and Sophos products. Here we go. There's no point in me going over all that, but you can see that it's up there with the best. You've got the 200, once again, similar levels here for the updated devices. There you go. So these are all basically, if you've got a comparison with a competitor and you want to work out which model to go for, these are available in the slides, and it will help you choose which model is required. Then I'll just go over some of the features you'll recommend. So it's got the same sort of look and feel as the USGs and our VPN devices and so on and so forth. So this is the USG Flex 100. You can see it's got 1 WAN port, 1 SFP port, 4 LANs and DMZ ports, obviously a USB port. And each slide gives you the number of the default number of access points that you'll manage, and the maximum number of access points. And then you can look at its real world firewall, VPN, IDP, AV, and UTM throughput. This one is sort of a smaller fanless type design, where you can use it in perhaps, you can use it at homes, or maybe in a coffee shop or a small restaurant or something like that. This is where this one's coming from. It's more in the USG 40-60 category. Then you've got the next one up is the 200 device. So it's got 2 WAN ports, still got an SFP port, 4 LAN and a DMZ, and you can see once again its AP count, all its different throughputs and so on and so forth. So it's gone up in throughput capacity. It's fanless again. Then we get to the USG Flex 500 range. Substantial increases in firewall and VPN throughputs, as you can see here, rather. IDP goes up substantially as well. Much bigger number of LAN interfaces. They can be flexibly configured for 2 WAN, and you can spread it around, so on and so forth. Choose which way you want to do. Still 1 SFP port, more USB 3 ports if required. The other thing I should point out, at this level, at the 500 level, you're also now getting into device high availability pro mode. So by having a pair of these devices, you can have a high availability solution without any trouble whatsoever. So you have a heartbeat link between the 2 devices. They're in lock state mode, and one of them will take over should a device fail. Then I've got here a feature table, as you can see here. So you can just choose what features, throughputs, so on and so forth that you require. So as I said, you'll get all these slides, and it should help you to choose which device you need for your opportunity. So as usual, there's lots of features. Just map it to your requirement. Hopefully you can see things like, does it need a rack mounting kit? Is it silent? Power requirements, stateful packet inspection rates. And just go back and you can see all that. So just choose the core link speeds and sort of things like IDP and VPN throughputs that you require, and then you can just choose your device based on other characteristics. What I would say is obviously, rather than absolutely match the minimum requirements, so maybe a USG Flex 100 is ideal at the moment. If you know that sort of 1 year or sort of 18 months down the line, the link speed is going to be increased, particularly if you've had a gigabit bearer put in perhaps, but you've only had sort of 200 meg over it. With the costs of upgrading these circuits now, substantially less, I would consider your solution over maybe a period of 3 years. So try and scale the device on where you want to be in 18 months time rather than a minimum requirement now, because you're only going to have to go and upgrade it at some later stage, and it's best to just do it now, get on with it. So these tables are available in the slides. Obviously, the next thing is just simple things like what part numbers there are. So these are the descriptions of the device only, and then you've got the bundle part numbers and so on and so forth. So you've got 100 bundle, 200 bundle. It's pretty obvious. Then you've obviously got the actual table of what the USG Flex 100 licenses are. So if you wanted just a 1 year or a 2 year anti-malware license, these are the part codes that you can use. The bundles tend to have the LIC-BUN code in them, and you can see what the bundles are all about here. You get them in 1 year and 2 year formats. You can also see the additional access point licenses should you require them, and then obviously if you wanted just secure reporter extensions. So everything is on these particular slides for the 100, 200, and the 500. Then there's a little bit more in the way of product comparisons across Zyxel products, because some of the things that people have asked is in relation to the ATP and the USG and so on and so forth. So I've got a simple slide here which basically tries to sort of give a table of where the ATP sits, which is basically it's still our top end. The ATP is still the top end security device. Some of the features have become available now in the USG Flex because of our cloud database engines and security engines. We're leveraging those extra features within the USG Flex as well. You don't get sandboxing with the USG Flex, and you don't get threat intelligent machine learning. You can see what the table says here. So the USG Flex is a substantial increase on the USG series, but obviously it doesn't have the completely top end, particularly the 0-day sort of sandboxing type protection that the ATP series gets. So it depends, what's the phrase, takes your money, takes your choice, or whatever. It's sitting higher than the USG, but it's not at the same level as the ATP in terms of ultimate security, but it's a substantial improvement from the original USG. This is just a simple suggestion for the license and the configuration model mappings, as they like to call it, on these sales kits. So the USG 40 would go to a USG Flex 100, a 60 to 200, and then you've got things like the 110 and the 210, and the Zyxel version of the 110 would go to a USG Flex 500. What I would say is that this is the beginning of the family. There will be a USG Flex 100W model. So that's the model whereby you have a Wi-Fi access point built into the device itself. So if you wanted a coffee shop with an access point built in, that's one of the models that will be coming out next. We also have a higher performance model called the USG Flex 700. That's coming out later this year. So these are the first 3 available models. These are actually on the UK parts list at the moment. But what I'm trying to say is that there's higher performance models coming out. There's a Wi-Fi model coming out, integrated Wi-Fi. So it's exciting times. I think this is a really good, substantial sort of signs of investment in the Zyxel security devices. We're leveraging relationships with people like McAfee, which are, these are not small relationships. These are big investments and big relationships. So you can be rest assured that the kind of security features and the level of detection that we'll be offering is up there with the highest competitors, without a shadow of a doubt. So I'm nearly coming to the end. I've got some Q&A slides, Q&A section. I always mention as well, we've got the MSP program. Don't forget about that, people. If you're not aware of the MSP program at the moment, would like to say thank you very much for your time. Sorry, I'm a few minutes overrun. If anybody's got any questions, I'm just going to hang around here, go and have a look on the question sheets on the webinar. But thank you once again, everybody. And if there are any questions, I will answer them as soon as I possibly can. Thank you very much again. Cheers. Bye-bye.